The Myers Briggs Type Indicator test is one of, if not the most popular personality tests in the world. It's particularly popular in business, with 89% of Fortune 100 companies taking it. A lot of YouTubers take this test in a video, and I figured I'd do so myself. The Myers Briggs divides people into 16 different personality types. It's based on the conceptual thinking of Carl Jung, although it's not totally in agreement with Jungian psychology. There are some reasons to be skeptical of this test, reasons which I shall get into later. But now, without further ado, allow me to take this test. Okay, so this test is from 16personalities.com. It says, try not to leave any neutral answers, but it gives us the option to. You find it difficult to introduce yourself to other people. I mean, I'd say that I'm more introverted than extroverted, but on the other hand, I don't really find it difficult to introduce myself to other people. I mean, I may not always do so, but I don't really find it difficult. So I'm going to moderately disagree. You often get so lost in thoughts that you ignore or forget your surroundings. I'm going to moderately agree to that. You try to respond to your emails as soon as possible and cannot stand a messy inbox. I'm going to moderately disagree. You find it easy to stay relaxed and focused even when there is some pressure. Minorly agree to that. You usually do not initiate conversations. Moderately agree to that. I mean, sometimes I initiate conversations, but I would say I usually don't. So you rarely do something just out of sheer curiosity. I'm going to moderately disagree to that. You feel superior to other people. This might sound a little arrogant, but sometimes I do feel superior to certain other people at least. So I'm going to moderately agree to that. Being organized is more important to you than being adaptable. I'm going to, moderately disagree to that. You are usually highly motivated and energetic. I'm going to moderately agree to that. Winning a debate matters less to you than making sure no one gets upset. Well, I do understand the concept that you can't really win an argument, and that, like, even when you do win a debate, sometimes, even if you're right and the other person is wrong, a lot of times they won't accept, the truth, or even if they do, they may still resent you for it. On the other hand, I do have a tendency to sort of get sucked into, like, debating and the truth and that sort of thing. So I'm going to actually moderately agree to that. You often feel as if you have to justify yourself to other people. I'm going to minorly disagree. Your home and work environments are quite tidy. Moderately disagree. You do not mind being the center of attention. I'm going to moderately agree to that. I don't mind it. I don't always want to be the center of attention, but I don't mind it either. So you consider yourself more practical than creative. I'm going to moderately disagree to that. People can rarely upset you. I'm going to minorly disagree to that. Your travel plans are usually well thought out. I'm going to, either moderately or strongly disagree to that. I guess moderately disagree to that. I mean, sometimes I pack at like the last minute. It's often difficult for you to relate to other people's feelings. I'm going to minorly agree to that. Like, sometimes I do have to remind myself to sort of relate to other people's feelings. So, but it's not like that hard. So I'm only going to minorly agree to it. Your mood can change very quickly. I'm going to minorly agree. In a discussion, truth should be more important than people's sensitivities. I'm going to minorly agree to that, just because, like, I do understand how, like, other people's sensitivities are important, but then sometimes, like I said, with the debate question, sometimes I sort of get sucked into, like, the truth and that kind of crap. And so, I'm going to minorly agree to it. You rarely worry about how your actions affect other people. Moderately disagree. Your work style is closer to random energy spikes than to a methodical, organized approach. I'm going to strongly disagree. I'm going to strongly agree with that. You are often envious of others. I'm going to moderately disagree, because it's not like I'm never envious of others. I think everyone is, but I'm usually not. So I'm going to moderately disagree. An interesting book or video game is often better than a social event. I'm going to minorly agree to that. Being able to develop a plan and stick to it is the most important part of every project. I'm going to moderately disagree. You rarely get carried away by fantasies and ideas. I'm going to moderately disagree. You often find yourself lost in thought when you are walking in nature. Moderately agree. If someone does not respond to your email quickly, you start worrying if you said something wrong. Well, I mean, I know logically I shouldn't, but sometimes I do worry about those things. But I'm I'm just going to minorly agree to that. As a parent, you'd rather see your child grow up kind than smart. I'm going to moderately agree to that because um, I wouldn't necessarily want my child to be like really, really smart, but really, really evil. You do not let other people influence your actions. I'm going to, let's see, moderately agree to that. Your dreams tend to focus on the real world and its events. And I assume what they mean by dreams is like your aspirations and things like that. So I'm going to moderately agree to that. It does not take you much time to start getting involved in social activities at your new workplace. I'm going to moderately disagree to that. You are more of a natural improviser than a careful planner. Um, yeah, I'm going to moderately agree to that. Your emotions control you more than you control them. I'm going to moderately disagree. You enjoy going to social events that involve dress up or role play activities. I'm going to minorly disagree because I usually don't go to social events that do that, although it may not bother me that much if I did. So that's why I'm just going to minorly disagree. You often spend time exploring unrealistic and impractical, yet intriguing ideas. I'm going to moderately agree to that. You would rather improvise than spend time coming up with a detailed plan. Um, yeah, I'm going to moderately agree to that. You are a relatively reserved and quiet person. I'm going to moderately agree to that. If you had a business, you would find it very difficult to fire loyal but underperforming employees. I'm going to minorly agree to that. You often contemplate the reasons for human existence. I'm going to strongly agree to that. Logic is more important than heart when it comes to making important decisions. I'm going to agree, but just minorly because heart is also pretty important when it comes to those decisions. I mean, I try to like base my decisions on logic as well, but I'm just going to like minorly agree. Keeping your options open is more important than having a to-do list. I'm going to minorly agree to that as well. If your friend is sad about something, you are more likely to offer emotional support than suggest ways to deal with the problem. I'm going to moderately disagree. I have a tendency to, if someone is telling me about a problem and I have a solution, I have a tendency to tell them the solution. And sometimes, because some people don't really want solutions that much, they just want emotional support. Sometimes I have to like remind myself that the person may just want emotional support and not the solution. You rarely feel insecure. I'm going to moderately agree to that. You have no difficulties coming up with a personal timetable and sticking to it. I'm going to moderately disagree. Being right is more important than being cooperative when it comes to teamwork. I'm going to minorly agree. I mean, that's similar to like the debate question once again. And I know that it's actually not always that great to be right. Sometimes it's better to be cooperative, but then I have a tendency to sort of want to be right. So that's why I'm just going to minorly agree. You think that everyone's views should be respected regardless of whether they are supported by facts or not. I'm going to strongly disagree. And the reason for that is because um, some people's views are so wrong and so badly and so unsupported by facts that like I don't think that those people's views should necessarily be respected. um like especially some of the like certain extreme views that are extremely wrong. You feel more energetic after spending time with a group of people. I'm going to moderately disagree. You frequently misplace your things. I'm going to moderately agree. You see yourself as very emotionally stable. I'm going to minorly agree. Your mind is buzzing with unexplored ideas and plans. I'm going to moderately agree to that. You would not call yourself a dreamer. Moderately disagree. You usually find it difficult to relax when talking in front of many people. Um, Minorly agree. And the reason for that is like I'm actually pretty good at like public speaking, but talking in front of many people is not necessarily that includes public speaking, but it also includes things that are not really public speaking. So I'm just going to minorly agree to that. Generally speaking, you rely more on your experience than on your imagination. I'm going to either minorly or moderately disagree. I'll say minorly disagree. You worry too much about what other people think. I would say minorly. I'm going to minorly agree to that. If the room is full, you stay closer to the walls and avoiding the center. This is one of the strangest questions on this test, and I don't know. I'm gonna like moderately disagree with it. You have a tendency to procrastinate until there is not enough time to do everything. Um, I'm gonna maybe minorly agree to that. You feel very anxious in stressful situations. Well, I'm gonna moderately agree to that. You would think that like a stressful situation is the kind of situation that causes anxiety. So yeah. You believe that it is more rewarding to be liked by others than to be powerful. I'm going to strongly disagree. You have always been interested in unconventional and ambiguous things, e.g., in books, art, or movies. I'm going to moderately agree to that. You often take initiative in social situations. Well, I can take initiative in social situations, but I wouldn't say I often do. So I'm going to moderately disagree. All right, so this does say that I am an INTP. It says I'm an INTPA, but the A part, that's just something that this test has added. It's not really part of the Myers Briggs type indicator. And so it says that I'm 57. When it says mind, this trait determines how we interact with our environment. It says that I'm 57% introverted and 43% extroverted. And I think that's probably about right. Like, I would say that I'm more introverted than extroverted, but I'm not like extremely introverted. So, like 57% introverted, 43% extroverted is probably about right. Energy. This trait shows where we direct our mental energy. It says I'm 73% intuitive and 27% observant. So I think that's probably accurate. Nature. This trait determines how we make decisions and cope with emotions. So 60% thinking and 40% feeling. So yeah, that seems about accurate. Tactics. This trait reflects our approach to work, planning, and decision making. So it says that I'm 82% prospecting as opposed to 18% judging. And then identity. This trait underpins all others, showing how confident we are in our abilities and decisions. And it says I'm 57% assertive and 43% turbulent. However, I want to point out that this is not something that is really part of the Myers Briggs. It's just something that is added by this website. So there are many, many descriptions of the INTP personality type. I'll read just part of one of them from the 16 Personalities website. The logician personality type is fairly rare, making up only 3% of the population, which is definitely a good thing for them, as there's nothing they'd be more unhappy about than being common. Logicians pride themselves on their inventiveness and creativity, their unique perspective, and vigorous intellect. Usually known as the philosopher, the architect, or the dreamy professor, logicians have been responsible for many scientific discoveries throughout history. The unexamined life is not worth living. Logicians are known for their brilliant theories and unrelenting logic. In fact, they are considered the most logically precise of all the personality types. They love patterns, and spotting discrepancies between statements could be almost described as a hobby, making it a bad idea to lie to a logician. This makes it ironic that logicians' words should always be taken with a grain of salt. It's not that they are dishonest, but people with the logician personality type tend to share thoughts that are not fully developed, using others as a sounding board for ideas and theories in a debate against themselves rather than as actual conversation partners. This may make them appear unreliable, but in reality, no one is more enthusiastic and capable of spotting a problem, drilling through the endless factors and details that encompass the issue, and developing a unique, viable solution than logicians. Just don't expect punctual progress reports. People who share the logician personality type aren't interested in practical day-to-day activities and maintenance, but when they find an environment where their creative genius and potential can be expressed, there is no limit to the time and energy logicians will expend in developing an insightful and unbiased solution. Further, logicians are unlikely to understand emotional complaints at all, and their friends won't find a bedrock of emotional support in them. People with the logician personality type would much rather make a series of logical suggestions for how to resolve the underlying issue, a perspective that is not always welcomed by their more sensitive companions. This will likely extend to most social conversations and goals as well, like planning dinners and getting married, as logicians are far more concerned with originality and efficient results. The one thing that really holds logicians back is their restless and pervasive fear of failure. Logician personalities are so prone to reassessing their own thoughts and theories, worrying that they have missed some critical piece of the puzzle, that they can stagnate, lost in an intangible world where their thoughts are never truly applied. Overcoming this self-doubt stands as the greatest challenge logicians are likely to face, but the intellectual gifts, big and small, bestowed on the world when they do, makes it worth the fight. So, while many things do seem to be relatively accurate when I read these descriptions, I don't totally agree with all of it. And one thing about this test, and one good reason to be skeptical of it, is this. Statistically speaking, when you give a group of people the test, and then you wait 5 weeks and you give the same group of people the same test, 50% of them will actually come out to having a different personality type after just 5 weeks. Now, according to Carl Jung, your personality type can change over time, but this is not the assumption made by the Myer Briggs test. The Myer Briggs assumes that your personality will remain the same throughout your life. Now, whenever I've taken this test, I usually come out INTP, but there are times when I have come out a different personality type. Some psychologists, including Sigmund Freud, would argue that you can't organize people into different personality types anyway. I do think, however, that this is a fun personality test and it can be useful as long as you don't take it too seriously, but I think there is some value to it. Like, for example, I once asked my father to take this test, and he came out to be an ENTJ. And one thing is, when you read descriptions of ENTJs, almost all of them will mention that they are very confident. And in my father's case, this is true. Virtually everyone who has met my father will tell you that he comes across as very confident. But there's also a danger in this test in pigeonholing yourself and thinking that you will adhere too much to the description that is provided of your own personality type. Like, for example, in the description that I read from the 16 Personalities website, it said that INTPs worry obsessively about failure, and I'm not so sure that I obsess that much about failure. In fact, I don't agree with that. Another danger to the Myers-Briggs type indicator is the tendency to try to overanalyze things based upon what their Myers-Briggs personality type is. While the descriptions often do sound accurate, I also find that it's not really that useful to try to predict people's behavior based upon their MBTI personality type. A lot of times, its ability to predict future behavior is not really very good at all. I said earlier that the description does sound fairly accurate to me, but this could be because of the Forer effect. The Forer effect is named after a psychologist, B.R. Forer, who in the 1940s administered a personality test to a lot of people, but he ignored the answers that they gave on the personality test and instead gave them all a description that involved a lot of sort of generalized things about people's personalities and asked them to rate the accuracy of the personality evaluation on a scale from 1 to 5, with 5 being the most accurate. And on average, it got about a 4.2, meaning that most people thought that it was highly accurate. And this test has been repeated several times, and usually people will give the result about a 4.2 on a scale of 5 on average accuracy. So the Forer effect probably does apply at least somewhat to the Myers-Briggs type indicator personality profiles as well. But like I said, I do think that there is some value to this test and it can be useful as long as you don't take it too seriously or base too much analysis on it. So, what are your thoughts? Have you taken this test? And if so, I'd be interested to know what personality type it says you are. Let me know in the comments. I'd also be interested to know if you think this test was useful and if you think it accurately describes you. So if you like this video, go ahead and give it a like, and if you haven't already, subscribe to my channel, join the Zork Army, and together we shall take over the world. I upload 8 videos a month. You can also follow me on Snapchat, Instagram, and Twitter at ZorkMid123. I also broadcast on YouNow at ZorkMid123.